Today, we're diving into something really special, an ancient map. But it's not a map of any place on Earth. It's a 2,000-year-old map of the human mind. It comes from an old Pali text called the Paṭisambhidāmagga, and it lays out this incredibly detailed, step-by-step path to what it calls ultimate wisdom.
Okay, so let's get right into the most important concept on this whole map, paññā. Now, we translate it as wisdom, but it's so important to get that this isn't about being book smart or just knowing a bunch of facts. Think of it more like a beam of insight, a direct, intuitive knowing that just cuts right through all the usual confusion and lets you see things as they really are.
And the amazing thing about this ancient text is how precise it is. It doesn't just talk about wisdom in some vague, fluffy way. Nope. It says that paññā is actually built from exactly 73 distinct types of knowledge. Each one of these is called a jnana, and you can think of them as the individual steps on our journey.
So, how are we going to tackle all 73 steps? Well, we're going to approach it like the map it is, as a journey of awakening. First, we'll look at the big picture with the map of wisdom. Then we'll see how it all starts by laying the foundation. From there, we'll walk the path of insight, check out the major breakthroughs in the knowledge of liberation, and finally, we'll explore the Buddha's really unique wisdom. All right, first up, the map of wisdom. Let's get that bird's-eye view of the whole path and see how you get from just hearing about things to actually seeing reality.
The really crucial thing to get here is that these 73 knowledges are not just some random checklist. They actually form a developmental blueprint for your mind. Each step builds on the one before it in a really clear sequence. So it's less of a list and, more of a curriculum for waking up.
So, with the map in hand, where does the journey actually begin? Well, that brings us to Section 2, laying the foundation. Because just like any great building, a wise mind has to be built on a really solid base.
And this slide just lays out that foundation perfectly. The whole path kicks off with Suttamaya Jnanam, which is the knowledge you get from hearing and learning the teachings. But that's not enough, right? That intellectual stuff has to be grounded in Silamaya Jnanam, the wisdom that comes from living an ethical life. And with that solid ethical base, you can then start to cultivate Samadhibhavanamaya Jnanam, which is the knowledge you get from developing deep mental concentration. See the flow? It goes from the outside in, from ideas to actions to the mind itself.
Now, once that foundation is set, the whole journey shifts from preparing to actually investigating. And this brings us to Section 3, the path of insight. The Pali word for this is vipassana, and it literally means to see things in a special way, to see them directly, as they are, without any delusion.
And this is where the map gets super practical. It's not just a vague instruction to go meditate. It tells you to develop very specific kinds of insight. For instance, you learn to see the constant rising and falling of every thought, every feeling, every sensation. And why would you do that? Because seeing it directly helps you loosen your grip on things you thought were permanent. And that leads to developing this deep, unshakable calm in the face of life's constant changes.
And the text itself gives you these powerful, direct formulas. This quote is basically saying, the wisdom you get from watching things fall apart is the insight. They're not two separate things. The practice is the result. It's showing you this direct cause and effect relationship for training your own mind, turning an idea into something you've actually lived.
Okay, so all of this insight practice, it's all building toward a huge breakthrough. And that brings us to Section 4, the knowledge of liberation. This is where observation turns into actual freedom. These are the moments that change everything. So here's the fundamental shift. Insight stops being something you just passively observe. It becomes this active, purifying force that literally permanently changes your mind. The slide says it all, really. It's the difference between watching a storm from your window and becoming the calm, unshakable center of that storm. The text actually highlights two distinct moments in this breakthrough. First, there's Magga Jnanam, the knowledge of the path. This is like a lightning strike, that one moment of insight that just slices through and destroys these deep-seated mental habits for good. And then, right on its heels, is Phala Jnanam, the knowledge of the fruit. This is the mind getting to experience the peace and freedom that comes right after that breakthrough.
But just when you think you've reached the absolute summit, the map reveals one more section. And for me, this is where it gets truly fascinating. Section 5 explores the Buddha's unique wisdom. It highlights 6 types of knowledge that go beyond what's available to even the most accomplished student.
So the text basically splits the 73 knowledges into 2 buckets. 67 of them are called Savaka, which means common to the disciples. This is the path that's open and attainable for anyone who really follows it. But the last 6 are called Asaranani, meaning uncommon,
because they are considered unique to a fully awakened Buddha.
And this chart really just puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? Look at that. The vast majority of this incredible wisdom is presented as being within reach for us. But the map also recognizes that there's a final pinnacle, a level of awakening that's just in a whole other category.
So what are these pinnacle knowledges? Well, they point to some truly extraordinary abilities. We're talking about things like being able to perfectly understand the spiritual state of other people, achieving a truly boundless compassion, and ultimately, the two knowledges that basically amount to omniscience and a completely unobstructed, clear understanding of all of reality. So, when you step back and look at this whole map, what's the big takeaway? It's that this ancient text isn't just pointing to a destination called wisdom. It's laying out an entire training program for the mind, a systematic process that takes you from just hearing ideas about reality to directly seeing its fundamental nature. It's a complete curriculum for the mind, all the way from the first step of just listening to the final goal of unobstructed knowing. It's an ancient framework that feels surprisingly relevant today. And so, this 2,000-year-old map leaves all of us with a very personal question to reflect on. Where are you on the journey?